Okay. Hey, everyone. This is A Brain in a Vat, and I have with me this evening Aussie Insider, who is currently a brain dead in a vat Aussie because she has not gotten any sleep. And while I also went to bed very late last night, I did manage to get a few hours sleep. So Ozzy should be excused for any cognitive issues as she is living off of residual brain energy and hopefully coffee or some other substance. So first of all, Ozzy, how are you? How are you holding up?
Beep. Come on, mute button. God damn it,
Uh
my
oh,
mute button's like my mute
damn,
button's going to sleep on me.
damn mute button's tired too.
I know it's like everything's in slow mode for some reason. But hi guys, I'm good. I've got a second win, and I'm just using a latte that someone bought me yesterday, and drinking it right now.
Yes, some sort of stimulant, I think, is required at this point. So, I mean, I actually have a cough this evening because I think I was up till about 7:30. I know the sun was coming up, and then I got a few hours sleep, and then I woke up, and well, the mystery had sort of been solved. At which point, it was time for you and I to get back together and run over what the new developments were and what we had learned, and then to decide what we wanted to do with what happened. Excuse me, as I said, I have a bit of a cough. First of all, hello, everyone that's in the chat. Thanks for coming. Sorry for this being late. We didn't have much time to put this together, but we thought it was important to get it out there sooner rather than later. And I sort of, we had a quick discussion, and I wrote a mock up sort of script so that we had something to work with, and I'll go over what the format is. So, the idea this evening is to use essentially what just happened, um, like as of the last few days, and use it as an educational opportunity and hopefully provide maybe some lessons into how we went about discussing and potentially solving it. Excuse me again, my coughing. So I suppose
You
first
need a
I
cigarette,
should.
man.
Yeah, I need some water. I've coughed again. I didn't get any sleep. So so I guess I have to probably give everyone a trigger warning. Although I mean, there's really nothing graphic or there aren't any really particularly troubling details, but sort of the context of the story is a bit alarming. So there's your trigger warning. So, as I said in and warned about in my introduction video, which maybe some of you might have seen, where I sort of announced that I'm a scientific skeptic. And a scientific skeptic, it's not a club, you're not a member of it. It just simply means those who sort of apply a certain epistemology or even a mindset of how to go about evaluating truth claims in the world. And we use an evidence based sort of scientific framework as well as the incorporation of formal logic and formal reasoning to help us evaluate all truth claims. So when I say I'm a scientific skeptic, a skeptic is essentially a mindset. It's just a particular confidence in evidence-based and scientific reasoning. But there are no rules, uh, nothing to join. You don't pay any membership dues. And at the end of the day, the way I describe it is scientific skepticism is a mindset, and critical thinking is the tool set. So if you're a critical thinker and you're scientifically literate, and you believe that having evidence is better than not having evidence, and you believe that reasoning logically is better than not reasoning at all or reasoning illogically, then feel free to call yourself a skeptic or a critical thinker. So we evaluate truth claims, and the problem, as I tried to describe in my first video, is that we're just not very popular at cocktail parties. People don't tend to like scientific skeptics because as we evaluate all sorts of truth claims, eventually you're going to step on someone's sacred ox. You're going to evaluate a truth claim and come to a conclusion that this thing is likely true or this thing is likely untrue based on your litmus tests, looking at the evidence and passing it through a filter of reasoning. And so scientific skeptics are not very popular sometimes. However, and this is maybe the relevant point for this evening, when people want to figure out something, what actually happened, they tend to come to us for assistance. So Aussie might not call herself a scientific skeptic, but she is, for all intents and purposes, a fellow skeptic traveler to myself. And we both bring simply a different set of skill sets. We have different skill sets, which we both bring to the same table, trying to figure out what's going on. Essentially, we're performing
Well,
the same sorts
I'm
of
going to interrupt you.
exercises.
1 second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I?
Sure.
Hey, the Ayatollah skeptic calls me a skeptic, then I guess I'm a skeptic.
You are a
I
de
just want to add
facto
that.
skeptic. Welcome to the club. And so you understand the format in case, I mean, I think I'm going to describe it in a little bit. So if I don't, I'll try to come back to it. So we're both
Okay.
trying to sort of perform a similar exercise. We're trying to help educate people on methods that one can learn and get better at to become a better critical thinker and to better figure out the difference between good information and bad information. Or in the classic words of Terence McKenna, the difference between shit and shinola. So we thought this evening we might provide a case study in an effort to lay out how we went about applying logical and critical thinking methods to come to certain conclusions. And then at the end of the story, I'm going to hand it over to Aussie so that she can provide some really valuable lessons on how you can go about utilizing certain OSINT or publicly available tools on the internet to help you do better homework online. So it was a very interesting collaboration last night, and we logicked together, which is not necessarily a word, but just go with it. We reasoned together through what the available information, noticed a lot of inconsistencies, and then once we were sort of down a particular pathway and we'd reached a certain consensus, then Aussie just went off and did her magic. And, we're pretty comfortable that we think we know more or less what happened. So I prefer to simply use logic and, and science as I shy away from trying to find out particular details about people online, just out of privacy concerns, just maybe not my thing, but sometimes it's absolutely necessary. And this was one of the cases where it was absolutely necessary. And that is when Aussie's amazing skills come into play, and she used them to ultimately solve this case and get the necessary evidence that we needed to draw certain conclusions and have a certain confidence level to make certain tentative fact claims this evening. So, and this is the delicate part, in an effort to not shame anyone, embarrass anyone, or even dox certain people, we're going to avoid the use of names entirely in our discussion this evening in favor of simply making this talk into an educational opportunity for, hopefully, for your future use. So, what happened in this case is exactly why, as scientific skeptics, we do not go out with truth claims before the evidence is sufficient. It's why we've made videos calling out people who make false accusations and constant innuendo and insinuation without the necessary evidence. And it is at least partially because people can't really seem to differentiate between opinion and fact, even when people expressly add the caveat that they're not claiming it to be fact. They say it's an opinion, but I'm not even sure it necessarily matters if some large subset of the audience simply runs with whatever, however you qualify it, whether you assert it as an opinion or a fact. I'm not even sure it's really relevant anymore in this post-truth era. So the format of the conversation tonight is that I talked with Aussie, and I wanted to have basically a storyline, a sequence, a timeline of how the events unfolded in front of us, and then to just give some little insight into some of the hints, some of the things that triggered our critical thinking radar, our skeptical radar, and how ultimately, among a few friends, reasoning through the available information as it came forward, we had a fairly strong consensus at a certain point in time that something was not kosher here. And we were pretty comfortable at some point saying, this is a hoax, ladies and gentlemen, and it's a fairly transparent and clear hoax. And so my timeline is going to try to sort of sequence it. It's not going to be perfectly linear in terms of time because some things are sort of related to some other topics, but it's a general overview of how things unfolded for our eyes and that we are in agreement on. And then once I get through the story and draw a short conclusion that I'll present to you, then I want to hand it over to Aussie, and Aussie is going to give you all a lesson on the sorts of exercises that she went through in this case, but that she applies, generally speaking, when trying to solve these sorts of problems. And so that's the format. And so let me tell you a bit how we perceived the unfolding events in this clear and obvious hoax. So, one, a rumor of someone in the YouTube true crime space is alleged to be deceased and possibly at their own hands. And this rumor begins to spread. It takes on the qualities of a snowball, growing with every successive second. And this is not a benign sort of rumor. It's not claiming that someone had pizza this evening instead of cheeseburgers. This is a rather serious claim that someone is dead, and dead at their own hands. And this is, for a skeptic and a critical thinker educator like myself for a long time, what we would refer to, in the words of Carl Sagan, an extraordinary claim. And by that, I don't mean that people dying is exceptional, or even people taking their own lives is exceptional. But someone dying under mysterious circumstances, in the absence of any known health issues, raises skeptic radar. So we go by a simple heuristic. If somebody was alive yesterday, they likely are alive today, unless you have very good reasons that they have stage 4 cancer, or they've been given a death diagnosis recently, and there are very good reasons to believe that they don't have much time left, or there's a serious accident. But we tend to be skeptical about people simply dying, especially in the absence of evidence, and good, strong, confirming evidence. So, 2, this rumor then goes on to further suggest that it was the cause of this person's demise was YouTube bullying in this space. And that rumor itself then begins to propagate as the likely cause of this event. And again, logic dictates that if you don't know if someone is dead, you can't possibly know what the causes are yet, can you? Logic 101. 3, this rumor propagates, which provokes people to begin speculating and asking for information. An outpouring of emotion begins, with everyone lamenting the possible passing of someone in the community. just a normal human response to the possible passing of an individual, a human, and in a particular community, which is our community. So it's normal to have these sorts of emotional responses. And so, to move on a bit, then we get wind of this rumor in a live stream on my channel 2 nights ago when an individual comes into my chat asking questions about a certain person with a particular YouTube channel name, and also inquires as to whether people have seen another channel's content where they might have bullied this individual. 5. No one in my chat room has any information about the topic, and neither Aussie nor I know anything about the individual being named. Never heard of this person. 6. The individual seeking information in my chat room seems concerned about the well-being of the individual, but none of us at the moment can help. We're trying to conduct a live stream, and I was trying to conduct an interview, and Aussie was trying to assist in modding the chat room and keeping us on topic. 7. Subsequent to this event, where we come to hear about this rumor, we were both separately approached for assistance from different people to see if we could possibly help out in any way. Subsequent to this request for assistance, this rumor continues to grow, and several individuals make video and community post content from simply asking for any information to far stronger claims insinuating that it is not only likely true, but that they are aware of those possibly responsible for bringing about this horrific event. Again, very strong assertions, insinuations, lacking sufficient evidence. 9. Aussie Insider, insightful, who is again gracious enough to help me mod this evening, and who I interviewed the other night. We all jump in an audio chat, and we spent approximately 9 hours together discussing what we knew and what we didn't know. We looked through video content, community posts, YouTube comments, and even went into live stream chats to try to glean as much insight into this mystery as we could. So people asked us for assistance. We were contacted via various means, and we tried to help in the best way that we knew how. So 10, we shared video amongst ourselves of the person in question with the channel in question while that channel was still active. And luckily, we were able to keep an image which turned out to be completely instrumental in cracking this case. 11, over the course of this rumor mill process, it also comes out that there was an apparent email communication between friends of the family of the MP, or missing person, which Aussie will discuss more in detail in terms of why that terminology is used, and that the death is not only confirmed, but the cause is confirmed to be YouTube bullying. It was not clear who the primary recipient of this email was, or if there was any more information, possibly a letter written by the missing person, or even video footage. 12. Again, this rumor continues to grow and snowball. More community posts and live stream conversations are had. 13. At a certain point, a community post is made with a screenshot claiming to be from the family friend confirming the death, the cause of this death seemingly at this individual's own hands, and that the family had even engaged a PI to look into what happened. 14. At some point yesterday, an anonymous YouTube profile comes on to various video and community post content to announce the confirmation with this person claiming to be a friend of the family. This person claims to be an inside source with an anonymous YouTube profile, somebody nobody knows. 15. This alleged friend of the family argues that this is not a hoax and also provides a date for when the body was cremated and that the individual claimed to have been present at the actual funeral service. 16. This immediately raises a host of red flags. The flags had been growing up to that point, but this now is increasing the amount of red flags that are shaking around in our brain because of this very short gap between the alleged death and suddenly already cremation and funeral services having occurred. 17. Aussie makes a request for contact information in order to send condolences to the family. Now, again, we will go over her perspective once I finish this timeline, and she can begin at any point in this story to give you her perspective, or correct me in case anything I have misrepresented, although we did discuss this in advance to make sure we were on the same page, as it was important to not get this wrong. 18. At around this point, the channel of the alleged deceased individual is taken offline and no longer available. It also seems that videos on that channel were removed earlier in this rumor cycle. I, for example, was only able to see one video relating to dollar store purchases. That was the only thing on that channel once I went looking for this particular channel. So I do not know what was on it before. 19. Rumor continues to grow as we speak together. People all increasingly assume the rumor to be true and that the cause of the death is bullying. And some claim to know who the actual responsible actors even are. 20. Again, skeptic radar flags going off everywhere. The timing, what the possible motivation is here, things like convenient revenge, settling ongoing interpersonal and intertribal grievances, again, an outpouring of emotion, so people susceptible to emotional sight blindness or ability to reason are compromised. 21. More skeptical flags relating to the claim from anonymous YouTube profile person that the family brought down the channel. This is a dubious claim in the wake of a family death that they somehow have access to a YouTube channel immediately and the time or interest to remove it in the early stages of grieving sounds suspect. 22. At this point, the ongoing discussion between myself, Aussie, and Insightful is just adding up. All the accumulated skeptic flags, and ultimately, we find consensus at some point in the middle of the evening. And that consensus just grows as we learn more and discuss more and get more little pieces of evidence. There's just something about this story that clearly does not add up. It just doesn't pass the smell test. And at this point, we start going down the various avenues. We start thinking about the players, the alleged information, the possible motivations, the possible winners and losers in any particular hoax, if this indeed is a hoax. Essentially, who has the most to gain and who has the most to lose. We also discuss a host of other logical inconsistencies, with again, the consensus amongst ourselves growing that this story is likely to be untrue. 23. We begin starting to do our digital homework. And it is at this moment, and I admit that I wish I'd thought about it, but it was Aussie's brilliant idea at that moment to run a reverse image search on the missing person in question to see if there were any hits on the face. Now, I have used reverse image searches before, but that didn't come to my mind at that moment. That was her brilliant insight, and that's ultimately the pathway which led us to some gold. So 24, she comes up empty-handed after using several tools and several available video images that we had because we didn't have an unlimited source of primary content in terms of the face. But ultimately, she does strike gold and gets a match after remaining perseverant. And this match ultimately provides a cornucopia of information about the actual individual, their real name, their social media accounts, possible addresses and locations over time, even email and telephone numbers. And pretty sure that we have reasons to believe that these are solid matches. 25. Also, somewhere during this ongoing rumor mill, confidence about this alleged confirmation begins to wane, as increasingly, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of those who were skeptical, some in my community. Thank you, other fellow critical thinkers and skeptics. Suddenly there was an increase in skepticism on some of these comment threads as more and more critical thinkers and skeptics suddenly began to ask certain questions, including myself. And the narrative slowly and increasingly began to change at that point from seeming certainty that someone was deceased and that they knew the reasons to the possibility that this is indeed, ladies and gentlemen, an orchestrated hoax, a fraud. 27. At this point, people wonder about the veracity of these alleged emails and these, excuse me, these alleged friends of the family and the authenticity of certain new YouTube profile accounts claiming to be friends of the family. And then suddenly, coincidentally, and highly suspiciously, the channel of the MP in question is suddenly taken offline. This is also highly conspicuous. The alleged family friend then comments that the family itself took the channel down because it was too hard to see it, given what has just happened. Again, highly suspicious that a recent grieving family would have any interest in dealing with YouTube phenomena. Interesting. 27. At this point, Aussie sends an email to an individual claiming to have initial email contact with friends of the family, as well as a possible telephone number for the MP in question. No known contact, either by telephone or email, is, however, confirmed to have ever occurred. And then suddenly, bam. Drum roll, please. Aussie, were you going to simulate a drum roll for us?
I'm trying. Sorry. My microphone's
Nope.
doing slow shit. Hang on. Drum
There,
roll.
there you go. Ladies and gentlemen, there is your official drum roll. 28. The person in contact suddenly and seemingly out of nowhere is resurrected, ladies and gentlemen. The person makes a public appearance on YouTube, on the YouTube comment section, and claims that their channel was hacked and claims to be looking into the origin of this seeming hoax. Odd coincidence and timing, don't you think? As there was no known contact behind the scenes, as far as we're aware, or as far as anyone has communicated with us. 29. For myself, upon getting a few hours of sleep, I awake to find that Aussie has seemingly solved the mystery, at least in terms of the individual in question, the possible locations of the individual in question, telephone numbers, dates of residence, social media accounts, blog sites with confirming names and images in multiple locations. In other words, she found our MP with lots of corroborating evidence. 30. At this point, we think we know a few things, and I always use the word know sparingly. The person in question is not deceased, everyone. A hoax, therefore, was propagated on the YouTube community, which provoked people to irresponsibly assert, with varying degrees of certainty, that the hoax was true and real, and varying degrees of accusations and insinuations of who the YouTube perpetrators in this alleged death are. 31. At this point, we are no longer going to share more about what we may or may not claim to know or have reasonable claims on the actors in this hoax. So we hope that after this evening's live stream, you will have learned a few things, maybe a set of methods and heuristics, and maybe a mindset for how you might want to go about evaluating and approaching upcoming extraordinary truth claims, and how then to do the necessary critical thinking and internet homework to try to figure out such a mystery. And we will leave you with the rest of the mystery for you to figure out on your own. But if there is one moral to this story that we might want to impart on you, it's that you need to be more skeptical of these sorts of claims. You need to recognize that your emotional tendencies, your buttons, render you susceptible to unreason, and your ability to think clearly. What we have seen is really alarming. But this is nothing new. I'm a scientific skeptic. I've been doing this for a decade. I see it all the time. It's very disheartening because we see these things happen all the time. We look at them, we're instantly skeptical, and everybody else is credulous. Everybody else swallows it whole. And it's scary. It's alarming, but it's nothing new. And the extent of the gullibility, and then the opportunism, and those willing to accuse people of serious charges in the absence of evidence, is why people like Aussie and I do what we do. So that is where I'm going to end the timeline, and hopefully I have summed up how things unfolded to your satisfaction, Aussie, and to Insightful, who was present for this 9-hour marathon of reason and evidence. And the first of all, I think we'll take a break. I'd like to maybe we can take some questions from the chat. I even have I need actually a little break for about a minute. So Ozzy, why don't you take over? Maybe you can grab some questions if you've noticed anything from the chat room. I will quickly rejoin you. Maybe we can have a bit of a chat, and then
Okay.
ultimately we will move on to your lesson that you want to share with everybody else. How's that work for you?
That's fine. That works for me. Great. I'll try to fill
Okay.
in some of the gaps. There's a couple of topics that can be addressed while you're away. So
Okay,
good.
I'll be right back.
Okay. I guess one of the first things I want to say is that neither Brain nor I are going to rubbish this individual. She may have issues that she needs to deal with and may even need treatment. So we're not here to talk about that. So I think it's probably fair if we all, uh, think about that side of things. The nature of somebody to do something like this, it's not it's not in the realm of healthy mental balance. Let's just put it that way. That's all I want to say about it. So we can just leave that alone now. But the first thing I want to do is I just want to let you know that what I'm going to take you through step by step is pretty much what Trace Labs has taught me. So if you're not familiar with Trace Labs, we're going to go over some information about Trace Labs shortly, but we're at the end of this. But they're pretty much they're a missing persons organisation, and most of you already know they look for digital footprints and they try to locate the person. And so some of these tools that I'm going to run through and show you today are just the basic sort of tool set. There's nothing complex about them, but I think that some of you who feel that you might be good investigators will probably find them handy. And there's some paid tools. It depends on your financial situation. Some people can afford to pay for some tools, some people can't. So I'll try and show you a little bit of both free and paid. But obviously, the paid tools are a little bit more reliable, and the brain that goes behind them is also got to be reliable, or you end up with another Cherry 2.0. Was it 3.0? What freaking number are we up to? I forget what
I
number.
think
There's a
this is
Cherry
3.0.
something point.
It's at least
This is
3.0.
3.0 at least. so, so I'm going to try and step you through some of that sort of thinking as well, how we got to the bottom of this. So, uh,
So yeah,
I just
in
want
terms of
to.
a couple little points. One, I want to say to the point about, there are methods. So you need a solid foundation to reason well. You need a solid set of skills, but you also need facts. So facts without a foundation can't be interpreted. A foundation without facts, um, there's nothing to be done with. So you essentially, to be a good thinker, you need to have a bit of both. You need to be have a good foundation for how to reason and a set of tools and skills, and then you also need to be privy or have a vocabulary of facts. So that was maybe the last thing I'd want to say, and then it was just to sort of, I was thinking before you get started, Ozzy, don't we want to see if there are any questions about the story or the timeline that we
Well,
discussed?
there were there were some questions, but they were things that we decided we weren't going to answer. We weren't going to
Okay,
talk about those things.
got
But
it.
go for it,
Okay,
guys. If you've got a question or two, please do hit us up. But if they're question who all these people are or anything like that, then I'm not going to talk about them. Committed in violation of the RICO Act regarding protests. We'll talk about the protests a bit later, Patty. This particular topic is we'll run
yeah.
the
Sorry,
course on this
I
topic, and then we'll come
I
to some
grabbed
other
the wrong.
topics. So
I grabbed the wrong comment. It's not
very
applicable to
good
this
point,
particular
Gilbert the
chat.
bystander. Very good point, Gilbert the bystander. And I would just also call out to shout out to Dumbulla's Demon's Den, because he actually is it a
Absolutely,
he?
he gets the ball
I'm sorry.
rolling last night. Absolutely, and
So
then
he triggered two
Axelot
events.
comes in exactly, and then I jumped
He triggered
in, and that's when the tide turned.
Absolutely. He triggered two events that made us both raise our eyebrows, and we were like, "Wait, someone's onto something." Like, yeah, that someone's getting nervous here. I'll get to what those events were as we step through the thing, but the timeline's important. because these triggered events happen within minutes of uh, the things that Dumbala's demon was talking about, and other people had. So it was mostly Dumbala's
Yeah.
demon. He was on the
As a
trigger
skeptic,
with
I was so
both.
happy. Right, as a skeptic, I was so happy to see people coming forth because I could feel in the context when somebody claims to have passed, and especially at their own hands, the normal socially acceptable thing to do is express empathy, to not doubt it, and to take it on board because out of respect, it seems rather um, inappropriate to question something like that. But the problem is, if it's not true, the consequences of making the claim can be far worse than the one being skeptical. As a skeptic, I'm constantly dealing with people who say, you're not supposed to be skeptical of things. Well, how does anyone think we ever advance if we don't challenge bad ideas or if we don't question things that don't pass the smell test? So as a skeptic, I'm constantly getting that from people who think that it's somehow rude to simply ask a question or challenge an authority figure or challenge someone that everybody is has some alliance or commitment to, even if it's in your own tribe. That's what you're supposed to do as a critical thinker. As I always say, first question your own beliefs, then question the beliefs of those you consider part of your tribes, and then and only once you've practiced and performed those two exercises, only then do you start looking to criticize the people who you likely already disagree with or the beliefs that you already don't accept. That's the easy thing, and that's what most people do as critical thinkers. They reject the first two exercises. First, maybe you're wrong, and second, maybe the people that you trust and that are part of your social space are wrong. And I know it's not very popular when you might have to challenge somebody possibly in your tribe, but it's a required part of civil society that we can question things. And in this case, it was the right thing to do to ask questions because at the end of the day, this individual is among the living. And the people that were allegedly accused of things, how can they be accused of something in the absence of a mortality? So, this is sort of the approach. So when I saw the tide turning, and clearly Dambala and a couple others were willing to come forward, and then it just the tide turned, and then the evidence started to mount, and it led us down as the evidence was unfolding, led us down narrower and narrower pathways until you found it. You figured you brought the evidence that we needed to confirm what where our brains were taking us.
Right, and so the point that I was trying to make there is that the timeline is very important. So if you were busy chatting in the chat and you kind of missed Brain's very eloquent storytelling, there was a point to the storytelling. It was the timeline, and the timeline is the key. Once you understand when things occurred in the timeline, you can see exactly what sort of in the background. So we'll come, and I will, as I'm going through the steps that I followed through the Trace Lab steps or the OSIN steps that I followed, uh, I'll pause occasionally and let you know where these triggered events actually. So for me, the first mission was personally, I felt we needed to get in contact with the family to send our condolences and some flowers or whatever. And so that was the first thing. Who are they? Who are we sending this to? We had to ask around, and it became more and more apparent that pretty much nobody knew who these people were, who this person was, or her family. And let me just also add here, when Trace Labs does
Can
a
I? Because
missing persons
before you get started,
operation.
sorry, before you get started, Dambala, you absolutely were trying to be nice, and it was really your approach is really admirable. It was clear that you weren't trying to hurt anyone's feelings. You weren't trying to be disrespectful, and I'm so sorry for cutting you off, Ozzy. I just wanted to give Dambala props for that.
Absolutely. And he was being very respectful. skeptical but respectful, and I appreciated it as well. So in a trace labs operation, we get all of the info. We get the first name, the last seen location. We get a picture of what they look like, and we start from there. But this was a very unusual situation because we had no information. We didn't know the first name, or we knew what the first name could be, but we didn't know if that was her real first name. We didn't know the last name.
Right.
We didn't know anything. And so, in order to not dox anybody or make fun of anybody or anything like that, I'm going to call this person the MP, which stands for missing person. Because as far as we were concerned, she was just missing. Until we had evidence that said otherwise, she was just missing. So she's the MP. So the first mission for us in this very unusual case of having no information, we really had to brainstorm how we can identify the MP and then get in contact with the family. And we kind of were a little bit lost because I've never had a case where we've had no information whatsoever, and not even, practically a first name. So um, the first thing, I think we sort of jumped down the wrong rabbit hole to begin with. We're not perfect. I went looking under Dollar Tree videos because that was what was on at the time. So to begin with, I had actually missed a lot of stuff that had gone on. Brain had too, and I didn't actually know what this person looked like. So the Brain and I had done our own sort of catch up, sort of trying to work out who this person was, or even a picture of who this person was. He finally found her video and showed it to me. So now I've got a face to work with, and that's better than nothing at all. So from that video, I got 2 snapshots of the face, and I jumped down the Dollar Tree vids rabbit hole, which was, there was just too many of them. I think I even said to Brain, we are in the wrong business. These guys have got like 40 and 50K views. Maybe we need to do Dollar Tree vids, Brain. Anyway, neither of us are interested in increasing our views and subs, so we just need people to use their brains. But I
I
just thought it
want
was
my
pretty
channel to
funny.
fail. I'm determined to make
Absolutely.
this channel go back down to zero. That's my goal for 2022.
Okay, that sounds like a good one. I'm going to join you on that. See if we can get our subs back to 0. um, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit distracted because I've just put my lighter down. So I'm okay. I got it.
By the way,
So where was I?
we were worried that your computer was going to cook, and then you'd have to put the fan on, and then we'd have the Darth Vader hurricane problem again with the audio. But it's holding up. It's not burning up. There's not a fire in front of you at this very moment.
No, can you hear the air conditioner though? I do have it on. I just don't. I'm just not right, in the front of it, in front of it. So
Nope, sounds fine to me. Is my audio still working?
okay,
Okay,
cool.
looked like my audio wasn't working.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're doing good. We have that issues ironed out. Finally.
Exactly. After we had the echo problem, which, I really wanted to promote the idea of a universe filled with echo, but for some reason it was giving people partial brain damage, and so I decided to let you all off the hook, and I decided to fix the echo. So sorry about that for those who were fond of the echo. The echo is gone, or at least temporarily.
The echo is gone, gone, gone.
Exactly.
Anyway, I just did that for Platypus because she likes the echo.
Right. I loved the jokes when people came and they're like, "What's going on? No echo tonight." Sounds like the old Saturday Night Live joke about cowbell or whatever that joke was. So there's not enough echo, not enough cowbell.
Absolutely.
Um, uh,
So
to
basically, from
Bo, you need to probably begin from the beginning if you want, because, well, sorry, maybe you're asking a different question since we didn't give details about names, but I explained why that's the case and tried to give a general timeline so that at least those who didn't catch all the details or see this as it was unfolding, you can get a bit of the context and sort of then the the process that we had to go through as the information was coming in. Go ahead, Ozzy.
Yeah, we're hoping to learn something from this rather than being in the ghetto of YouTube drama scene. We are hoping to help people solve things for themselves so they don't get dragged into the ghetto. How's that sound?
Exactly.
So, where are we? Oh, yeah, I jumped down the Dollar Tree bids. Yeah, that didn't work. That was a bad idea. But then Brain is showing me the Dollar Tree video, and I'm thinking, oh, I get it. That's the chick we're looking for. So I took some screenshots. Took me a while to catch on. So, sorry, that's the MP that we're looking for. I have to remember we're the MP.
Isn't that a
And so
military
then
police?
it's a missing person.
I know. I used it too. I used your
you,
lexicon.
you did. So the first thing I did was, as Brain said, I decided to run a reverse image search. And so what Brain's going to do is going to throw some of them up on the screen so you can have a look at them and see how it works for those who are not familiar. I'm going to do the freebies first. But in this particular case, the freebies all failed. So, but they are free and they do sometimes work. And I think we've got a fairly common face to sort of run you through this with. So if you can pop on the screen first the tin, or actually we'll do the photo first with the Google Lens, because this one like pretty much on their computers. The Windows feature, I think it if you've got Chrome installed on your computer, so it's not just Windows feature, it's any computer with Chrome installed, you get this feature called Google Lens. We're going to use Google Lens on a picture of, what's his name again? Forgotten his
Elon
name
Musk.
again. Elon Musk.
You wanted it.
Elon
You
Musk.
wanted a popular figure to make it a bit easier.
Correct. So let's start with Elon Musk. So Brain's going to grab a photo of Elon Musk. He's going to right click on it, and in the right click menu is the Google Lens option. So
Okay, so you want
if
me to
you
go to you didn't want to say anything else about Tin Eye, right? You just want me to go to Google Lens?
correct, so you need to right click on the photo and open it in Chrome, and then you will get
Okay.
the option. Right
Now I'm on
click on
Google
your
Lens.
right
Okay,
click on
right
the
click where?
picture. You need to open your picture of Elon Musk, right click on it and open it in Google. And then when it's a picture in Google, you can right click on it. Yeah, open it with Google. You just opened it with, I can't remember what that was, but you right click on it and open it with
I,
Google.
I open with. Sorry, I don't know what open with Google means. I don't have any right click
Okay,
on an
right.
image. That's. You want
No,
me? Can I
on your
use? Go ahead.
on your Elon Musk photo, go to that
Yes,
photo, right click on that photo, physically on the photo, right click on the
that's what
photo,
I'm doing.
open
Yeah.
with, yeah, you see open with
Yes, that's what
in
I'm
your
saying. I don't
right
have
click
that.
menu.
It says choose default program. I guess I have to point it to Google.
Point it to Chrome, yes. Open it in a Chrome tab.
Okay, I
Once you've
don't
got it
know
in a
where.
Chrome tab,
I Yeah, but I don't know. Sorry, you didn't tell me that. I don't know where Chrome is in my program files. I'm assuming it's in C program files.
oh, what tab what are you using there? Is that
I mean,
Chrome?
I can
Are you,
open it in. I do have a link for to open it in Firefox. I suppose I can. Let's see what happens if
I
I open
don't
it.
know if you'll get it. Here we
Let me
go,
open it
guys. You need
because
to
I don't
have
have a right.
Chrome for the lens.
I
Right.
don't have a
You need
right
to have
click.
Chrome.
So
I didn't even check whether you were using Chrome before I led you off
well,
on this freaking path.
yeah, exactly. Okay, now does this help? Because now that image is in Chrome.
Right. Good. Now, right click on them. You should get the Google Lens option in the right click menu. inspect with Google Lens. What? He doesn't have Google Lens in his version of Chrome. Anyway, that's how you do it if you've got Chrome installed and updated and you're actually using it. I think Brains hasn't got it set as a default, so it hasn't got any updates or anything done to it. So
Yeah, you
it will
obviously you
open it
must
in
have that
Google Lens.
application. You must have that application already installed in your browser.
Correct.
I
And
don't.
you've got to be signed into your Google account and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So, failing Google Lens, we will go to TinEye next. And of course, Google Images. Once you've opened in Google Lens, you've got the option from there to search further in Google Images. So,
So do you want
that's
me
for
to do
people
like
who
an
actually
upload?
have.
You want me to do an upload here?
Yep, you can, yep, grab your Elon Musk picture and chuck that in there.
And there you go.
There you go. So it shows you 677 results for Elon Musk. Now, I got none for my MP, so they were failed. But these are the freebies. You can't afford to pay for a paid service. These are the freebies, and if the person's fairly prevalent on social media, as Elon Musk is, you will get a lot of results. So, uh, generally not 677, but you'll
Mhm.
get quite a few.
So,
He's just
so
a
the
very
point being that
popular.
you used this approach, you used a different application with the given image you had of the MP, and then that was ultimately what
Right.
gave you all the links to all of the information that we were able to
No, Tinoi
glean
didn't.
about
Tinoi
this
was a fail.
individual.
I'll take
No, you said
I'll
not
take you to the
TinEye,
one
but
that
you used Google
was.
Lens.
I'll take you to the one that worked. Tinoi was a fail. Google Lens
Yeah.
was a fail. Google Images was a fail. And if you want to flip over to Yandex so they can see how to use Yandex, that's
Okay.
another one. Same thing again. There's a little image next to your search button. See the image icon next to the search button? Yeah. Or is that a
A
keyboard?
keyboard? That's a keyboard. I mean, here are the
Uh,
icons: images, video, mail.
yeah,
Do I
click
click on this
images.
images?
Images. Yep.
Okay.
Should get an option there to, yeah, see the little camera next to your search button. Yep. Click that and drag in your picture of Elon Musk. So Yandex is actually, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this because I'm employed by Google at the moment, but I'm pretty sure I'm not, but I'm going to say it anyway. But Yandex is actually far better than Google in this regard. So we should come up with a lot more than 677 results with Mr. Musk, Mr. Muskie. We call him Muskie. If you've been watching the Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard court showdown, you'll know who Muskie is. How many results
Is
did
this
we
some
get?
sort of Aussie reference?
Muskie? No, it's just our nickname for him because he's
Okay, because
musky.
at least we don't speak Australian here. We speak English here.
No, this is right, the Queen's English. No, this is
That
a
that was a
all
joke,
round
Aussie.
everybody in the world.
That was a joke.
Okay, sorry, too literal. Anyway, Yandex is actually a far better facial recognition program, but you want to move up into really high quality facial recognition programs, which is in the end how I ended up finding this. We'll come to that in a minute. It's a paid service, but we'll come back to that. So, in what happens is I get no hits on that, and I'm like still trying to reach out to people. Can anybody give me any contact details whatsoever? And finally, someone comes up with an
Hot
email and a
Verdoma.
phone number.
Sorry,
Okay,
I had to show off my
translation,
Dutch. My Dutch.
translation.
Hot Verdoma, God damn it. Or
God damn
heck.
it. Right. exactly what I said, Bo, when I couldn't find any results at all using all of those methods. Anyway, finally, someone comes up with an email and a phone number that they were originally given a little while back. So I decide, all right, let's do a look up on the email address. So obviously you use public records for this. So if you want to switch over to Intellius tab there, Mr. Brain. This is one that a lot of people will use in trace labs. It's not the only one. We do a lot of cross-referencing between several of them. So, and that the price can add up because these are all paid services. So the price can add up for these. And because Brain hasn't got a service, he won't be able to show you that one working. But that's what I would
You
use.
sound
I
like
would use.
you're insulting me. The way you say it, like I didn't have Google
Yeah,
Lens set up, and now I don't have
you're
I
just
don't have
not
an Intellius
OC
account.
man.
You're like, is this some sort of discrimination?
Yeah,
I'm not.
dude,
I'm
but
not
you
a.
kick ass at the OBS. Totally blow me out of the water with the OBS. So, we've each got our own, niche, I guess.
Yeah. So we're gonna exchange services.
So in Intellius, you can do a reverse email lookup and it will tell you who owns that email address. But I didn't get a hit on the actual email address until a little bit later. There was just something a bit odd with the email. So the next thing I did was I thought, I'll look up the phone number and did a reverse search, a reverse lookup on the phone number. And again, it wasn't really a hit. So we actually did have someone,
I'm getting
but
ganged
it
up
wasn't.
on here in the by.
Yeah.
I'm now being called beta by Bo.
No way, babe.
Apparently I'm a beta
He's
male.
alpha. He's alpha in the skepticism and the fucking OBS, mate. He's like blown me out of the water with the OBS. Having the audio issues sharpened his skills in the OBS, like major hardcore. So, but anyway, where are we? We're looking at. So I did a reverse lookup on the phone number. We didn't really get a hit on that. We come up with a different name entirely, and that there was two names attached to that particular phone number, and one was passed away in 2019, but there was no sort of match in the names at all. So moving on, that was a fail. So then I'm thinking, all right, we're back to square one. We've got nothing. We've got no matches on the pictures. We've got no matches on the phone number or the email. What else can I do? So then I'm thinking, my screenshots that I took from the video, I just didn't get the right angle of dangle. Like sometimes the angle of the dangle works better with facial recognition. And just to give you an example, my tablet does not recognize me. First thing in the morning when I wake up, it's like, who the fuck are you? By lunchtime, it's like, hey, how's it going? It knows who I am. So that's just to give you an. So I decided to go back and get another screenshot, different sort of angle of the face from the video. But wouldn't you know it, the channel's gone down and I can't access the video. And I'm thinking, what? Why did that happen? In the
What
meantime,
a coincidence.
the
It's almost
brain,
like the timing was somehow relevant.
it was so relevant because the
It's
brain's
almost
over
like there
there.
were other events. There were other events that might have triggered that odd
Right.
response.
This is why the timeline's important. And again, I'm going to shout out the Dumbulla's Demon's Den because he triggered this first event. The channel went down because Dumbulla's Demon noted there was some similarities between one account's writing style and another account's writing style. Soon
Indeed.
as that went up, within a couple of minutes, at the very minimum half an hour, I couldn't
Also
access
the narrative also changed very quickly.
very fast.
The strength of conviction suddenly began to dissipate from
It
the
faltered.
witch mob, that was set up to begin lighting torches suddenly was diffused for some reason, and the narrative then all began to change rather quickly.
And this channel went down, and I was like, "Holy heck! What? How did this channel go down?" So while Brain and Insightful One were ruminating over why the channel might have gone down, they decided I need to find another video with the MP's face in it because I need a different angle of the face. I'm still nowhere. I still don't know who this person is. So eventually, yes, we do find a copy of the video. We find the face again. I get a decent screenshot, and off we go for another run. And this time I used a paid service called PimEyes. And I think you've got that one set up on your tabs there, haven't you, Brain?
I do indeed.
Okay, so this one's a paid service. And the reason Brain's putting these up on his screen is because I actually have subscriptions to these, and I don't want anybody to see my subscriptions or what I look up or what's in my history. Or it's going to log me in automatically. So it's on Brain's screen for
Because
ease
you
and
well,
privacy.
you're part of the Russian mafia, aren't you? I mean, you're part of a big conspiracy.
Absolutely.
I mean, as am
Yeah.
I.
The truth is, I don't always delete my searches, and I do when I'm doing the Trace Lab stuff. That's what we're required to do. We're required to delete. I get a bit lazy, and I get a bit of a build up, and yeah, I need other people. We're
But
not allowed to. We'll go through the Trace Lab stuff last, like what we are and aren't allowed to do, so you all get the idea of what that's
do
about.
these channels work for porn?
Uh, I
You
had
don't.
actually heard somewhere along the lines that you actually probably should be careful when you're doing searches because you might see stuff you don't want to see. So
Yeah, that was
I
sort of a
haven't yet.
joke. It was sort of a joke, but I assume that
You
there's
weren't
an
expecting a
answer to that
yes?
question. Well, no, I assume that there's an answer to that question in the sense that I'm pretty sure that it might help you do some investigation into sources of particular types of images, as
you
that's sort of the
you mean
point.
like
And
Gaz could have done his wiener search over there?
ouch, ouch! I'm not touching that one.
No, someone flashed their wiener on his live stream, and he spent ages trying to track down who owned the winner. So
Nice.
I
I've
don't
been
know.
lucky so
It
far.
might have
I
come
have
up in
not
people's.
I've not had any unwanted wieners to date. You know, knock on wood, I suppose.
Well, this is why creators always say, "Show it, turn your camera on, turn your camera on." They won't let you up on live unless you turn your camera on. They can see it's actually you and not a wiener. So
Oh, right. Yeah, and I'm not
that's a
turning
tip
mine on
for future
because
reference.
yeah, it's hot in the tropics, so
Yeah, and every time you accidentally turn your
I'm not
camera
in
on, you're
my
naked.
suit. I'm not in my professor brain suit or my suit and tie,
He,
my
por- he,
corporate
he porn
persona.
bombs
I'm
me
in
all
my
the time, guys. It's like, oh, I
nice.
accidentally hit the camera. Ah, Brain's naked.
Knock on wood is a poor choice of words. Yeah, Jen, good one. Jen got me. You know, we're trying to have a bit of fun in a rather unfortunate situation because there's nothing at all funny about this situation. And I'm pretty sure, or maybe you're not sure, since I'm seeing some of the comments, I'm pretty sure that a lot of you still don't really know necessarily what happened. And I'm going to disappoint you because we're not going to share. I'm pretty sure that
What we've
hopefully
shared so
we've
far
give
is all we're sharing.
yeah we've given you a glimpse in hopes that maybe you can start performing certain exercises to help you in these sorts of quests. But at the end of the day, we shall keep to ourselves what our conclusions are. Um, so there it is.
Yes, Rachel. This MP had their own YouTube channel, and I was looking at the only video that was left on their YouTube channel because, as I said before, I came into this a little bit late and didn't really know what was going on. And at the point where the demon friend of ours pointed out that there were some similarities in some handwriting styles, all of a sudden that YouTube channel disappeared. and it was happened to be at the same time that
Yeah.
Brain was over there
And there were
reading Dumbala Demon's comments, and I was over there trying to get the bloody YouTube video to play, and it wasn't playing. I kept getting an error. So
right, because I
um,
jumped into that thread, and there were also a host of other increasingly glaring inconsistencies. So again, this was an accumulation of information, some changing stories over time, um, some
time is
people that
everything.
didn't that some people that didn't get back quickly enough, which was suspect. People that seemingly had questions and then weren't coming back when you provided the answers. There were a whole host of reasons very early on. The significance of Dumbala's comment was how it shifted the narrative, the certainty level, and
And it caused the
made
channel to go
big
down.
yes, and it also began a process of people suddenly finding skepticism in a way that they hadn't found earlier on. So there's the significance
Proud
of the
effort, skeptics.
yes, provoking not only the site coming down, but also provoking the change of attitude. Suddenly, people who might have been skeptical before but were afraid to speak suddenly were coming forward, and then the narrative went from a high degree of certainty that this was confirmed to suddenly, or
To at
wait a
least
minute,
one eyebrow raised.
or wait a minute, is this true? Is that confirmation? Because my contribution was I came and I said that's not confirmation. Don't We shouldn't be using the word confirmation. This is an anonymous person, an anonymous email. We haven't seen the evidence. It could be anybody for a number of different reasons. It all sounded fishy, and then stories
Very
were
fishy.
changing. So there were lots of again, it was an accumulation and then a snowball effect. So the snowball was going in one direction for a period of time in terms of the consensus public opinion. And then suddenly that story began to change. And when that story began to change, suddenly other things happened, which then were sort of confirming the increasing probability that this story was not like was highly likely to be untrue.
Right. So the timeline is very important because it was within moments of Dumbala Demon's comment. Everyone started commenting on that, and then bang, the channel goes down. Now, I did find another video. I did find another screenshot. I chucked it in here to Pimize, and bang, I got a hit. Only one. And I find this very, very odd for somebody who's a YouTube presence to not have any other presence on the internet. This is very odd because we've used 5 different tools now on the photos, and this person has no presence except for this one photo. And I'm not showing you the photo because it wasn't a pleasant photo, but it was a disturbing photo, let me put it that way. But it was definitely the person
Yeah,
we were after.
yeah.
And so
I
from
I
that,
think
when you get a positive hit, oh, sorry,
I
Brain.
just wanted to no, I wanted to add that these were other hints. So the image that then we found after you did your homework was another eyebrow raising image, as if there was some
Absolutely.
possible foresight into what
A lot of
occurred.
foresight
and
going back
and
as
I will
far as October.
exactly, going back to October, I will leave it at that. And then there's
Yep.
another hint about a prior pseudonym used, which raised another eyebrow.
Right. I'll come to that in a minute. Absolutely. So, the hit that I got was for a blog site. Okay, so when you get a positive hit in your Pimize or Tinite or even Google Lens, it tells you which website that it's coming from, so you can follow the link to the website, which I did, and it's to a blog site. And from that blog site, I actually do find an email. Now, the original email I searched and I didn't get a hit from that. But what I did notice about this new email is that it was the same prefix, same prefix but different suffix. So wasn't the same. It wasn't the right domain provider. So I
Correct.
get one's a Gmail account. The first one I searched on was a Gmail account. The suffix and the Gmail account, I got no hits. But now I've got yahoo.com with the same prefix, and I get a hit. I get a public record, one public record. Sometimes you get quite a few public records because they're a common sort of, wording in the email address. And sometimes they exchange hands, using that anymore, so it's free again, so someone else can use it. So sometimes you get more than one hit on email addresses. They're not always a great way. Same with phones, they change hands as well. So this email brings up one record. So, but even at this point, I'm still not 100% sure I've got the MP. We still could have a Cherry 2.0, 3.0. What were we up to? I forgot already.
Yeah, well, and it reminds me.
3.0.
It reminds me of the pathway I had to travel when trying to find the traces of AK, where at the beginning,
Right.
you're limited with information, and then you
We
keep
had
digging,
5
and you
different
find that
AKs.
yeah, the truth then just sort of begins to present itself, or the likely truth begins to present itself as you accumulate more and more clues. It is
Data.
very much like puzzle pieces. There's a famous scientific skeptic image, I think it's in reference to evolution, where you don't have all the puzzle pieces, but if you have enough puzzle
Right.
pieces, an image, an obvious
Right. And
image
some people will
appears.
stop when they've just got a puzzle piece. They'll just stop and go,
Right.
bam, I've got it. Woo! And then they'll go
Exactly,
live and
that
tell
which is
everyone and find
confirmation
out they're
bias.
wrong.
Right, which is
Right.
confirmation
Confirmation
bias, which
bias.
was,
Exactly.
part of your
Exactly
uh,
how
recent
Cherry
video, and
Book
yeah,
1.0 happened.
and that's what people do. I mean, this was a perfect example of confirmation bias because it fed into
Absolutely.
what a particular narrative people wanted to believe in a particular, in particular phenomena in this space, and they feel like they've got a hit. I mean, for example, and I think you'll agree
Yes.
with me
Typically the
here.
bad
There
actors,
was there
okay,
was
guys? I
well,
said it.
well, exactly. Well, there was there was this false like. Sorry about my cough. Like I said, I didn't sleep. One second.
Why have we got Russian bots
There
hitting
was
us today right after Gigi comes to visit us? Isn't that
there
weird?
was right. There was this
Gigi
false
comes to
dichotomy in a
visit and then all
recent.
of a sudden we got Russian bots everywhere?
There
Sorry,
was
guys.
a fault
Sorry.
a fault. Yeah, there was a false dichotomy that was constructed recently in a recent conversation that we were all having about, that we are going after consequential, harmful behavior, and somebody else was going after bullying, as if that's somehow a proper dichotomy. No, what we're going after is the most extreme form of bullying. We are also against bullying. So, in terms of my confirmation bias and even yours, on first blush, this story looked like the bone that we were all looking for, that we had a perfect example of bullying that we could trot out and discuss as a case study. And as it ultimately turns out, that's not necessarily, well, it pretty conclusively not what occurred here, but everybody ran with it. And that's exactly what confirmation bias looks like. Some people wanted to believe it, and they didn't need more evidence. They didn't require more evidence. They turned off their critical thinking apparatus, and they were going to go with the narrative. And that's when you
Oh
get
my
into
God,
danger.
Jen, I knew it. I knew it. My confirmation bias knew it right from the start. We knew you were a Russian bot. Sorry, I did it again. I interrupted you again. But I wouldn't
No,
catch it
no,
before it got off
absolutely.
the
No,
screen.
I need to be interrupted. It's a good thing to interrupt me. Just like it's a good thing to do critical thinking, it's a good thing to interrupt me. It's always probably a fine choice of behavior.
Good, eh? So at this point, I've got a possible match. I'm not entirely convinced I've got the right match. I'm still using, my logic skills and saying I need to be sure I've got the right match. So I don't need to be going after someone who has nothing to do with any of this, and then everyone bombards them like poor old nomadic Trek. So the next thing I did was in that record, that public record that turned up, I started looking through the social media links to look for photos that I already had. And as I would have it, the very photo that I found on the blog site turns up on a social media account. So then I look through the rest of the photos and I see that this person appears fairly regularly throughout the photo albums. And I also at this point too that this person that I was looking at, her parents had passed away. I think maybe her mum first and then her dad a short time later. And so I took note of that because I thought there's probably an obituary for that would be out by now, because it happened over a year ago, or it was around 1 year ago. So I made note of that. And public records sometimes will show you who the parentages are and siblings and also children. So they sort of lay out the page in sort of a hierarchy style, so you get an idea who's a parent and who's a sibling and who's a child. I ended up finding the only one matching Facebook account, and then I found the owner of the face of the father, and I did find his obituary. And in his obituary, I found the names of everybody. I found that he has a daughter with the name of the MP. He has a son with whatever name. I don't need to go into that. So that gave me more reference points to look up and match all of these people together.
And
And interestingly,
one of the names that you referenced in terms of a particular telephone number, I was able to match up in another social media source with the same last name. So we had a very good reason to believe that a particular telephone number, which was an alternative to an original telephone number, was also a hit. And
the
there's a story
original
about a
phone number
telephone.
I was given that had no hit, it was actually a name, actually matched to a name on that Facebook account. Someone posting on that Facebook account. So the original phone number that I got, where I got no hit to the MP's name, but I got another name altogether, ends up matching another name on this Facebook. So those numbers are connected. But interestingly, this person, this MP that I'm looking at right now, has never been associated with that original phone number. So there is some connection there, but it was never her phone number. So whoever that person is that owns that number has given it out as a contact number for her at some other point in time.
Plus,
And so
without
from,
going into detail, you were able to triangulate the origin of the email, which of course we're not going to share.
of course not. Yeah, I was able to triangulate. So the Gmail part was wrong, but the Yahoo part I got a hit. It was the right prefix, wrong suffix. So yeah, and so just to work out which phone number was actually the correct phone number, I was looking through how long, like so in your public records results, you should have a hierarchy of the confidence that this particular phone number is associated with this particular person. It'll be ranked in highest confidence to lowest confidence. So I took the highest confidence phone number, had a date, say, between 1997 and 2021. That was the amount of time this person has owned this particular phone number. And then I find the address actually matches those dates. And so I'm pretty confident by this stage, we've got the right person, we've got the right phone number, we've got a current phone number, and then I got the phone provider, in this case it was AT&T, and make sure that that phone is still connected. And then after I've done all of these tests, I'm pretty sure we haven't got a Cherry 2.0, 3.0. Pretty sure we don't have a Cherry 3.0 on our hands. I'm pretty confident I've got the person. So at this stage, I get back the person who gave me the original phone number and I say, well, how about you try this phone? Well, that didn't happen. So far as I know, they didn't try that phone number. What happened was things were unwinding so fucking fast
Exactly.
that
It
this
kicked off a
MP
whole host
decided,
of other
okay,
events.
digs up,
Incidentally, suddenly things
incident,
happened. Incidentally,
incidentally, in a timeline that's probably not really incidental, but suddenly, all of a sudden, the MP shows up and says, "Hey, I'm here. You got me." So, that's probably
and
as far
and
as I should go.
immediately
I just
claims
want to add,
that the
I do
and
not believe
and immediately claims that the channel was hacked. A very
I do
dubious
not believe
claim.
the channel was hacked, and because Amanda made this point just before, the channel was hacked. That a password you wouldn't be able to get back in. You'd have to make a new one, and she didn't
Correct.
do that. The MP
Correct.
turns up on exactly her channel, all the videos deleted, but with exactly the same number of subs. So that was a bit of a
Correct.
boo
With
boo
then
right there.
also another bit of a convenient side story that they spent a bit of a time in infirmary. I'll just use that term, which is also highly suspect.
Yes, Bo, you are actually understanding it. We're not going to tell you who this is about. This is an MP. We're going to call them a missing person because they were not actually a dead person. They were quite literally just missing. And I found them. So I sent the information through to, the two primary people that were trying to get a bearing on the situation. And we all got set straight. The MP came out and said, "I'm here." Yes, we smoked them out, each girl.
Yep.
But rude about it. I don't want to
Right.
be rude about it, but the lesson here is, thank you, Delight. I'm glad somebody understands the lesson. The lesson here is you don't have to take the word for any YouTube creator. You can do your homework. Now, I've shown you the tools here. I've given you, 6 tools? How many tabs you got open? I lost count. I got one,
I have
2, 3,
6, and
4.
I have my banana hammock
Oh,
picture up. I can show that
yep.
too.
You what?
And nothing. It's a New Year's Eve party reference. Just kidding.
I don't really want to see any bananas. True.
No, no bananas.
Anyway,
Okay.
guys, I showed you the
No
tools. I
bananas.
showed you how to use the tools. If you have this situation come up again, go use the tools. They're all free except for PimEyes. PimEyes is not free, and you can get some public record access to some public records for free. Some of them will give you, X amount of searches for free, and then you've got to start paying for it. Some of them will give you. Some of them are totally free, but they're generally not very good ones. There's also uh, Scott Reich. His is actually a pretty good one to use. His is really well connected. And I'm not surprised. He's a lawyer. He needs like reliable public records. So, but Scott Reich, I do recommend. What's the name of his channel? Um, Crime
The
Talk.
lawyer?
Someone help me out.
The lawyer? Yeah, the
Yeah,
lawyer.
Scott Reich. Yeah, the lawyer.
Yeah, Scott Reich, I think.
Scott Reich.
Yeah.
Crime Talk or
Yeah,
something,
I'm
isn't
not
it?
sure. I think I watched him once.
I'm so bad at calling out for him.
Mhm.
Giving you a shout out, but I can't remember the name of your channel. But it's a good channel. But
Crime
he,
Talk.
he actually, yes, it is Crime Talk. Thank you, guys. It's Crime Talk. So go watch his somewhere in the middle or at the end of every Crime Talk show. He gives you a link to his his public record search. And as I said, it's a freaking awesome one. So it's up there with Intelligence. There's a few that are not so great. I find I need at least 2 or 3. I do a court records as well as public records. sort of combined one.
And you always make the point that public records
Yes,
can be wrong, and therefore, you have to, again, always more sources is better, more cross-referencing, the more corroboration you get. Always, again, a typical
correct.
critical thinking exercise. You want more evidence, and you want more mutually supporting and more corroborating evidence, and always, if possible, from high-quality sources. And the more you have, the
Yep.
more corroboration you have, the more confidence. You never maybe achieve certainty, but you then simply have a stronger degree of confidence that you're on the right track.
Right. And that's exactly how these things work. They give you a degree of confidence that these people are associated or these phone numbers are related or whatever. That it's based on exactly that
Yeah.
statistics.
I mean, when I went down the
That
AK Rocks rabbit hole, there were 10 AK Roxes. I'm not using the real name. And, they were very different people from very different walks of life, from different parts of the country with different names. And the people that, were participating in the defamation were just lumping them all together, taking a piece of this and a piece of that. And that's how conspiracy theories work. Is you take a detail from here and you take a detail from there, and then you weave this very convoluted story, which is why we tend to be skeptical about conspiracy theories because we know how the sausage is made.
right. And they were all bashed onto the same page in AK's case. All 10 of them were all bashed onto the same page. This is all the same guy. And we proved it wasn't. We couldn't
Yeah,
show you guys because we had to dox all of these people that were innocent to show you this information. We couldn't show you. Same reason we're not showing you this information today and just explaining how it works because we just can't be doxing people, like it's great to
yeah,
see how it works. And if I have an actual crime where there's an actual suspect who's in actual custody or is actually being questioned about crime, then I will go down that rabbit hole and I'll show you how it works. But unless all of those features are not present, unless all those features are present, I won't go down that rabbit hole. I won't dox people who
and
don't
and you've also
deserve
said something
it.
in the
So,
past which I very much respect, and it resonates with me. When somebody thinks you're sort of good at solving problems, or you're good at figuring things out, they can tend to sort of use you for their own ends, ends which you might not share with them, or that puts you in an awkward position where this is not a proper application of your moral standards. So, I know
exactly.
that in the past you've said, people want you to go find somebody for them, their enemy or someone that they don't like, to try to find dirt on someone. And I get that
Mhm.
all the time. And then I'm like, sorry, I'm not going to roast someone because you an interpersonal dispute. I choose the people that I tend to scrutinize very carefully based on my standards, not on your little interpersonal problem.
So
We're
if
getting some
people ask me,
artifacts in your audio.
oops, I'm getting too cold, am I? Sorry. If people ask me to give them information on someone, I generally just give them the homepage link or Intellius or Been Seen or Scott Richo. Pay for it and go find it yourself. So if you want to go after someone, go find it. I'm showing you how.
Right, because that's the point of the exercise tonight, and I will sort of try to sum that up later on. But why don't we go to the code of conduct of trace labs, because I happen to love this, since we've been talking a lot about ethics,
Yeah.
because they very
Yep.
much conform with some of the same principles that I've been trying to elucidate on here. So let's move over to that channel, and go ahead. You want to read it out, or just want me to scroll
Well, you
down,
can
or
read
what do you
it
want
out.
to do?
No, you're good. You can read it out, and I'll stop you so we can put some emphasis on a few things. Go for it.
Okay. This damn
So,
cough. I'm really sorry. I apologize to the audience if I'm intermittently coughing here. I should have gotten more sleep.
oh, do you
Okay.
want me to read
So,
it and save your throat?
oh, no, no, I
You
can
good?
read it. Trace Labs
Okay.
Code of Conduct. Trace Labs is a professional group with zero interest in anything but OSINT. We reserve the right to sanction or expel any member at any time. The Trace Labs model is to crowdsource individuals who come together to work as a team to help complete a worthwhile task. We understand and appreciate that everyone is different and has different opinions, values, and preferences. However, this is not the space to discuss such matters. Instead, this is a place where open source enthusiasts can learn from each other while helping to find missing persons. Anything else lives on a different space. Trace Labs is dedicated to providing a constructive and professional operating environment for open source intelligence gathering. We are unpaid professionals, which means that even though we are acting in a volunteer capacity, we hold ourselves to the same professionalism that you would expect from a doctor or fireman. Our efforts impact the lives of real people. We have zero interest in anything which may include occupation, gender, sexual orientation, disabilities, physical experience, body size, race, religion, political focus, or anything else that isn't related to our mission. Therefore, we support a harassment-free experience for everyone, regardless of occupation, gender, sexual orientation, disability, physical appearance, body size, age, race, politics, or religion. We do not tolerate harassment of participants in any form. This also includes the family and friends of any missing person. Any form of contact,
Emphasis.
including tagging, friending, chatting, liking, etc., will be viewed as harassment and may even be viewed as interfering with an active criminal investigation by the police authorities. Did you want to say something?
That's the emphasis part right there. You don't
Yeah,
contact them. We don't. If we have a sock account, we're only there to look. We're not there to talk to anyone. We're not trying to trick someone into being a friend and try and find information. That's
correct,
not. That's not. That's it. That's one. The first thing that'll get you banned from being a Trace
correct,
Labs member. Doing that sort of
correct. I
stuff.
mean,
You don't
these
contact
are
them and
just
you don't talk to
completely
them.
in alignment with, yes, my ethics as well in this domain.
Yes,
So, within the
absolutely.
Trace Labs
So
environment, harassment includes demeaning comments related to occupation, gender, sexual orientation, disability, mental illness, physical appearance, body size, age, race, politics, or religion. Unwelcome comments regarding a person's lifestyle choices and practices, including those related to food, health, parenting, drugs, and employment. Gratuitous or
can you
off
stop there
topic
for one
sexual.
second?
Sure.
Just on the last one that you read, unwelcome comments regarding a person's lifestyle choices, practices, including those related to food, health, parenting, drugs, and even alcohol and employment. And what are the other guys doing? They're doing all of those things wrong. They would never make it into Trace Labs because they're
Right.
doing all that stuff wrong. They'd be banned first day because they're
If you
breaking
want to
every
know what
fucking rule in the book.
if you want to know when I'm
Excuse me.
using the term bad actors in the true crime community, they do the opposite of all of these things. They have no
Correct.
respect for these ethics.
Correct. Stigmatization and generalizations. Exactly, Rachel M. Sorry, you can continue now. I just wanted to point that one little bit out because that's pretty much what we've been watching going on, especially with employment in the last like
Absolutely.
24 hours.
I mean, this is so applicable. I mean, these are just modern ethics for responsible behavior in a civil society,
Right,
and if you want to be
right.
professional. And so these are applicable to all sorts of domains. That's why they're brilliant, because there's a fairly strong consensus that this is the way to conduct yourself if you want to be a serious professional in pretty much any domain. So, gratuitous or off topic sexual images or behavior in spaces where they're not appropriate. Threats, incitement of violence towards any individual, including encouraging a person to commit suicide or to engage in self harm. Stalking or doxing, harassing photography or recording, including logging online activity for harassment purposes. Sustained disruption of discussion, continued communication after requests to cease, deliberate outing of any aspect of a person's identity without their consent. Most of our members value their privacy. Trace Labs only asks for a person's email address so we may offer opt-in communications. We do not want your real personal information, nor do we want to see it posted by yourself or others. This code of conduct applies to all Trace Labs spaces, including our meetups, events and chats, both online and off. Anyone who violates this code of conduct may be sanctioned or expelled from the spaces at the discretion of Tracelabs staff.
And we've had a couple of expulsions, trust me. So that's the code of ethics for Tracelabs, and that's what they hold. So when we're finished doing a missing persons op, not allowed to talk about it, not allowed to bring it up. And what happened with the one of the cases, it's already out there, so I'm going to just say it. So I didn't put it out there to start with, but Summer Wells case was included in the Catch the Flag event in, was it October or was it September? I think it was September, on the 15th of September. But it was such a short period of time that they had, because it's a competition and it only lasts for 6 hours. And you got 4 cases, 6 hours, go. Because it was just too hard. People were coming back and saying, there is so much trash out there that they couldn't even find real information because of all the trash they had to dig to find any information about this particular case. So a lot of people found it difficult, but some people came back and were saying, wow, I watched all that trash. Like, they wasted their whole competition watching the trash, which was quite funny. And they got nowhere. Like, they watched the trash, they got nowhere, and then they started typing, derogatory comments into the Discord, and they got booted, just like that, because they were saying things about, drinking, parenting, all this stuff. So some of them just got warnings, but some of them also got booted. So yeah, and you stick to the rules. Those are the rules that we all work by. One of the things that I like about working with the Tracelabs people is that pretty much I would say about 90% of them, they're the people that keep us safe on the internet. That's what they do for their day jobs. This Tracelabs is their part-time hobby. But what they do for their day jobs, they keep us safe on the internet. And it brings me to Dumbala's Demon's Den. Such a hard name. You need to just go DDD, mate.
That's an alliteration for you there.
I reckon. I just want to point out what he's saying here. His question is, have either of you seen the KZ Reid Hullabaloo? The MP was that. I think there's a misconception or confusion that you could all shed light on, and I absolutely freaking can. I'm doing a video on it right now. We just sort of sidetracked to do this one. Too, I can chuck stuff up on the screen. It's quite involved, and I think I probably should just dedicate just a video to it on its own so that you can wrap your heads around it. But the KZ Reid Hullabaloo is also the reason that we've got Russian bots that are hitting the chat today, because we're upsetting these KZ Reid Hullabaloo supporters. So they're just smashing us with KZ Reid fucking trash, and it's going to keep happening. Like, so long as we're not buying into their conspiracy theory, even though we just solved their worst bloody drama, we're still going to cop it. Like, we found someone. I was really chuffed that these tools actually work to find someone. We don't often get these results with Tracelabs. We don't see the results. When Tracelabs are finished a missing persons op, it all gets bundled up into a report and given to the authorities, and that's it. We don't see anything. We don't know if they ever get found. We don't know if we did good or we did bad. We have no idea. And so this is one of those situations where there is a bit of a reward at the other end. We get to see
Absolutely
a result. And we found the missing person. And so I was a bit chuffed that these tools came together.
Yeah, no, and you deserve to be lauded. All the credit to you. We certainly worked as a team. We all followed the logic down a narrower and narrower tunnel, and ultimately you came out with the goods, because as I told you once
I
I
don't
woke
want to
up.
be
I'd
lauded. We
already,
worked as a
uh,
team.
yeah, we worked as
We
a
did the team.
team, but
Yeah.
I alone, I knew I had a strong logical conclusion that was based on accumulation of clues and evidence that was available, and that I had a strong probability position that I was pretty sure I knew more or less what happened. But you brought the evidence, you brought the goods. So if I were to have spoken about this on my own, I would have, given my critical thinking and logic discussion, but I wouldn't have been able to feel nearly as comfortable because I would have been lacking the evidence. So you brought the bacon home, and so yeah, so I mean, you did a great job. And as you said, I mean, I know how that stuff works. These are tools that can help you, but some problems are complex, and there's sometimes just an absence of information, and your probability, your confidence level is either decreased, or you have to just simply sort of reserve judgment and not make any claim. What we found ultimately leads us to have a fairly strong, well supported position. And so it was a pleasure to work, um, to get the outcome we got. I'm glad the tools
It was
and
a
your
great team
methods,
with the right
yeah,
heads,
worked for you.
and the right faces, and the
And then the
right set
tools
of
and
skill
skills,
sets. Yeah,
yeah, no, it really
for
worked out
sure.
nicely. So that's very rewarding. And then I think, and then maybe we'll open it up, but it's then really important that you guys need to, you know I mean, the people in this room hope are already sort of on board, as you probably wouldn't find us compelling content creators. Um, but at the end of the day, what this experience shows us again for the millionth time is how gullible people are. People bought this in large numbers. The vast majority of people bought this. People need to up their skepticism and their critical thinking about things in this community, in other communities, on social media, because this was a very, very serious accusation. There are very serious potential consequences from this sort of thing happening and working. And so hopefully we're instrumental in helping unwind it and possibly diffuse the ultimate consequences. But there will be consequences from this, and there will be people that believe what they heard, even despite our content tonight. And so people, you just need to look at the appeal to emotion. If somebody refers to a missing child, or somebody refers to someone dying, or somebody refers to someone dying at their own hands, or people bullying them, these are all emotional things that any normal person is going to respond very emotionally to, and have a probable commitment to a particular belief. And I'm seeing right
Right.
now in this room tonight people that are misinterpreting what we've discussed this evening. There are a lot of people in this room that have it, I think, wrong. We are simply, because we wanted to use this as an educational opportunity, we're not going to share what we think we know. We think we know more, and we think we understand a bit more about actually what's going on here. And there are people in this room that are still being driven by motivated reasoning, by their tribal biases, by their personal alliances and commitments. And we're asking
Right.
you to work a bit
Right.
harder, please. It's in our collective interest as a community, as human beings, as a species, as a society. We hope that you got some good out of this, but the purpose was not to shame people or embarrass people or call them out, because I think we could, but we're not going to. So take that for
That's
what
it.
you will. And I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Ozzy.
Can you highlight Jackie P's question? She says, "Excuse my ignorance, but what are you looking for to help you find a missing child?" It's a very good question, because in the scope of trace labs, we're looking for digital footprints, and so missing children are actually quite a large mismatch with trace labs. But when we have the catch the flag events, there is some sort of like an overlap where that could be useful. And I think that's why Summer Wells got thrown into the mix, like the first child that I've ever known of to be thrown into the mix. It's because Trace Labs teamed up with the child exploitation sort of side of things. There's another organisation again that does the same sort of thing that Trace Labs does, but they do it on the dark net where children get traded. And so I think they threw that in there specifically for the people who are familiar with the dark net and know how to get around it and how to find those things, put their focus into sort of that area. But unfortunately, it didn't really work because Summerwell's case was totally flooded with rubbish. There was rubbish everywhere, and they had to dig. It's like the difference between a lolly wrapper laying on the ground in front of you and a lolly wrapper under a bunch of junk at the dump. That's the difference. It's very hard to find a lolly wrapper under a bunch of junk at the dump. And that's kind of what they found. But we did get a few teams who were keen to take a bite out of the darknet, have a look around and see if there was anything on the darknet that was relative. And I'm pretty sure it was a once off event just to see how it goes and what sort of happened with it. And I think that the negative feedback might have any positivity that came from it. Nonetheless, whatever anybody found from that Trace Labs event, it went to law enforcement. I can guarantee you it was all compiled into a report and sent off to law enforcement. We don't know what was found. We don't know. We get like general results, like, excuse me, like total number of flags that your team caught or whatever. I haven't actually participated in one of these, but I do watch how it unfolds and how it works. I do have a Trace Labs video actually on my channel if anyone wants to watch it. It's kind of how the judges are preparing for the event and all that sort of stuff, all that suspension and how it unfolds. And it's a good little video if you want to go watch. I sort of put a couple of different pieces together to sort of to set the scene for you if you want to go find out more. But generally, missing children, they don't generally have an online footprint. Their parents do, their relatives do, adults generally do, but usually children, especially in the 5-year-old age group, they don't have an online footprint, and so they're very mismatched with Trace Labs. And then on the emotive thing, I would just like to say, to add to what Scientific Skeptic was saying, is uh, uh, it just fell out of my freaking head. Come back, brain. What was I thinking, man?
We're
It
both
was
we're
the
both
emotive
tired.
stuff. But
We're both tired. I hope we're holding up, and Ozzy deserves more sympathy because I mean, you haven't slept in 2 days now, right?
I'm brain dead. I had a really good fucking point. I had a really good point, and I've forgotten it. It just jumped out of my brain.
Everyone just
Uh,
assumed that Ozzy read her mind, and just know that it was a really good point.
it was, and it was about emotive reasoning, and it was to do with was it to do with Summer Wells case, or was it to do with Trace Labs? Oh my god, it's gone. You know what? Brain will
Uh
start
oh.
his next sentence, and I'll remember it. And I'll be like, shit, 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 shit.
As you
So,
should. I mean, obviously, I was just talking about how this strong emotive response that we are all susceptible to clouds our ability to reason. So that's why I always do these thought experiments with people in my science and philosophy forum. When something, let's just use the new internet lingo, when something triggers you, when something makes you feel furious, angry, sad, depressed, ecstatic, be skeptical and stop and feel your body to just sort of understand the neurochemistry that's moving through your veins and through your brain, and recognize that's something that's occurring to you which can cloud your ability to then be more objective and more reasonable. So and be careful when you find people who are constantly provoking these emotive responses in you, because that might be a sign that somebody's using those techniques sort of tactically in order to manipulate you. So some topics are just inherently sad and emotive, and you might not necessarily claim that someone's engaging in manipulation, but you may find that they might just be engaging in manipulation. And you need to understand for your own brain just the way we work. What we understand about modern psychology is we engage in motivated reasoning. We tend to have preconceived beliefs that we seek to confirm. And so when things like this happen, we're just sort of conditioned by evolution and our nature and our nurture to then, emotively draw a conclusion instead of rationally draw a conclusion. And we try to promote enhanced reasoning to help you become a better decision maker, to help you avoid being duped, manipulated,
It also
used.
helps you to avoid being It also helps you to avoid being fatigued, like your compassion level gets stressed, and the more you're exposed to all of these tragic things, and the more it moves you emotionally, it actually dampens your compassion, and you become compassion fatigued. So if you find that you're obsessing about a particular case, you can't sleep, you're thinking about, a little girl that's missing all day, every day, and you can't turn off the YouTube because you need to know the next thing that's going on with this little girl. If that is taking up all of your time and all of your thought space and you can't think straight, you are most likely suffering from compassion, and it's from overexposure. You need to be able to take that time away and go and enjoy your family, take the dog for a walk, wash your car, or step away from it and disconnect from the field a little while, so that you give yourself time to rest, you give yourself time to look after you, and then come back and think about the case. But when you're getting bombarded all day, every day, it does actually cause compassion fatigue. Now, first responders know, anyone who's a first responder out there will know exactly what I'm talking about, because they're the first ones to fall victim to compassion fatigue. And it generally affects them first. It's their
And
lives
you
it
you
affects
can you
first.
can also have the exact opposite. So everything you said is is spot on. You can also have the sort of opposite, which is a sort of, then, because this is basically, you get sort of consumed with with the the down feelings that you're experiencing, and it can make you sort of ultimately dysfunctional. You can also have the opposite, which is, you're
Unempathetic.
constantly infuriated, and you're constantly then, engaging in constant moral panic, where then then it becomes a Maslow's hammer thing. Then you see everything as infuriating, and then it infuriates others, and it becomes this then vicious circle, where then everybody in a community becomes more and more infuriated, or more and more depressed, or more and more cynical, or more and more pessimistic. And so, anytime you are exposed only to a particular type of emotion for too long, it can have consequences. So it's always a good
Yeah.
idea to try to step away when you feel that you're only experiencing any particular emotive state. Like somebody might say,
And
"Well,
lack of
what about
empathy.
fun? What about just you're just only ever having fun?" Well, I mean, maybe then you can't be serious again unless you have to deal with a bit of adversity. I don't know.
Right. And lack of empathy is another sign of, different ways different personalities respond to compassion fatigue. People can get very tired and depressed. Some people can actually go the other way and just lose all of their compassion. They become desensitized and they don't have any compassion. And we're seeing that, unfold with a number of creators that we won't mention. Um, Although I do agree with John Crimes that, if we don't mention them and we're not calling it out, then they're just getting away with stuff. So at some point, I think it is good to mention, but I'm being polite here to the brain. If I was on my channel, I'd say the names, but this is a shared stream tonight. This is on Brain's channel and my channel, so I don't want to say anything that he's not prepared to have on his channel. But had this been my own
No,
stream, yes, I'd have called these people out, and I feel that they have lost their compassion. They have none left. They've been doing it for too long. They have no compassion left.
yeah, and I mean, this is one point that I've been also drilling on from the beginning that just really annoys me. This notion that, you know, people need to stop criticizing creators. We all need to get along. That doesn't make sense in any other context. Think about it. So everybody in an office, colleagues, if somebody's doing
It's
something
bystander
terrible,
effect.
if somebody's committing a crime because they are a peer, you're not supposed to challenge them. We would have never made progress if we don't call out bad ideas. So it's a silly claim to make that everybody should get along and all the creators should support each other, and no creator should speak ill of another creator. It matters what somebody's doing in this world. If somebody's acting in a way which is potentially harmful or doing things which are dangerously unethical, that behavior it needs to be called out. That doesn't mean you need to necessarily be rude or attack the individual, but it means that the ideas or the truth claims that have been presented, if they're factually incorrect, you should feel morally obliged to say something about it. Back to Dambala's comment last night. The whole trend, the whole mood in the room was everyone was meant to feel empathy and compassion and to accept the claim, and everybody was afraid to break from that social norm in that moment and say, well, I mean, is this true? Basically, just ask a question. And there
Right.
were, by the way, there were several comments. There was one nasty comment in all caps. How dare you assume that this isn't true and blah, 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 blah. That's disgusting and inappropriate. That's why people don't speak out when they're in a mob or they're in a group of people or they're in a tribal situation. We're sort of, we are social animals. We tend to prefer avoiding a confrontation. But sometimes the most moral thing to do is to have the courage to stand up and say, excuse me, but this seems a little odd, or I don't agree. There's nothing wrong with that, it should be sometimes commendable and the most moral thing to do.
There are some experiments. My audience will be well familiar with this because I've talked about it several times. But there are some experiments actually on YouTube looking at bystander effect, where people are. There's lots of different examples of it, but you can just look up bystander effect. There's examples of so a domestic situation is folding, and they want to see if anybody will in that's walking by will actually stop and say, "Hey, that's not right. What are you doing?" There's other ones where they have a child in a park, and they set it up so an actor comes along and pretends that they're going to try and lure the child away from the park to see if anybody tries to save the child. All these bystander effect experiments are being done all the time, and there's an endless array of them on YouTube if you want to watch them. And it's surprising that in the early days, there was a lot of bystander effect, especially in situations where someone could be sued for something. If someone thought that they could be sued for something, they just were not intervening at all. They're just ignoring it and walking on. But we have come a long way in the past few years, and I'm very pleased with where these experiments seem to be going, because there seems to be more recent experiments where more and more people are actually, if they see something, they say something. And I really like that approach. So, yes, the TV program, What Would You Do? There's a lot of it on YouTube, not just that program, but there's a lot of these experiments happening on YouTube. And they demonstrate the bystander effect, which is essentially what Brain was just explaining. You need to call people out. If you see something, you have to say something. Nobody was sitting back saying nothing when that lady at church and her child were recorded. Even the people that usually don't say something were saying something. So, I mean, we need to keep that going, and that's pretty much the message I think Brain was saying in my
Yeah, I
language.
mean, I've certainly covered the research into the bystander effect for about a decade on CBS. There's a really interesting topic, for example, in this context about also how sympathy and empathy works. Very interesting study. They found that in raising money, you have a lot of problems with your audio right now,
I'm doing it again.
Ozzy.
Overcooling,
Uh,
overheating,
so in
overcooling. Fuck it.
yeah,
So I can't even find
so
a balance in the middle.
there's there's a well-known phenomenon in fundraising, for example, where they had earlier, for example, in some of the African famines and the starvation, they found that when people tried to raise money for droughts and famine and civil war in certain developing countries, that if they showed 1,000 children on the ground, all emaciated and starving and pathetic, um, that they were able to raise less money than when they focused on one innocent um, starving child, and they recognize that this is sort of a sort of tangential to this compassionate fatigue, that we can somehow relate on a one-on-one level with a child or a puppy, for example, and maybe want to help or donate, because I think it resonates with us. We can look into the eyes of the puppy or the single child and relate to it in a way that if it's just an overwhelming amount of um, privation, you know, too many puppies, all that can't all be taken home, too many starving children that you can't help all feed, um, and that ultimately they've changed donation marketing in order to recognize this phenomenon. So now you might notice in these sorts of, in the old days, used to have those a full field of refugees or starving children in Somalia or Rwanda or something, and now they don't tend to do that. They tend to show you a particular case, one that can resonate with you as an individual, where then maybe you might have a greater um, internal impression that you could actually do something or help someone. Just a very interesting phenomenon. You would think that more people would push you more to want to help, but ultimately it's the opposite phenomenon.
Absolutely, and I agree with oh my god, it's off the screen already. I
I can.
agree with we need to
Who
learn
is it?
from each other. Was it? I don't know.
Oh,
It's gonna fall out of my head if I try and find it again. Okay.
yeah, I got it. I got it from Bo. I think it's Bo.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Bo.
Yeah. Thank you. um, so the last video that I published was kind of working with learning from each other. And while some people are claiming that my apology was enough, the point is I apologize. I accepted
Well,
that I
I
upset
actually think I'm going to say it.
someone.
Somebody owes you an apology. There were some very strong and unfair words used in your name after what occurred in my chat room, and you made the effort to apologize. And I think someone needs to make you an apology, and I will say it in this room in public.
Well, I didn't do it for the apology, Brain. I did it because it was the right thing to do. I don't really have a standard like if I apologize to you, you got to apologize to me or whatever. It doesn't work like that. You're just making that
No,
conscious
what
choice.
I'm
It's the
saying is
right thing to do,
what I'm saying is
regardless.
independent. Yeah, I'm saying from my perspective, it's independent to your impression. I'm saying that I think an apology is due from my perspective.
Correct. And I appreciate you calling that out. I really do. It's neither here nor there. I feel better because I did the right thing. And so, just on that note, accepting that I did the wrong thing. It's not an easy thing to do, to accept that you did the wrong thing. So I may have struggled with explaining why I did what I did. I certainly wasn't intending any harm or upset to anybody. It was just I was just on a completely different page. I was way the hell over in the east side, and this person was way the hell over on the west side. It was just two
Yeah.
different
Well,
pages, and
yeah. And
it wasn't
because
it
I'm not,
wasn't until
because we're
later
not going, go ahead.
it wasn't until later that I realized, yeah, I did probably treat this person unfairly. And so I really did genuinely mean my apology, and I genuinely meant to explain where I was coming from. And, I've only got maybe two people over there saying, well, that wasn't good enough. Well, some things just aren't going to be good enough for those sort of people. Doesn't matter what you do. Even when you say, well, what in your uh, view, what would have suited you? How would you have done it? And they can't answer you straight. They're going to go off on all these little tangents and not actually answer the question. So if you can't answer the question, then shut up. Obviously, I
Yeah. I
did all
mean,
right. If you can't think of a better
well,
way,
and we've talked about, we're gonna, maybe make a video, hopefully a bit entertaining, to discuss things like logical fallacies and how to have a conversation. And I discussed with you the other day how to sort of keep people on topic. So people tend to distract. So when they don't want to answer something, or they don't have an answer for something, they try a whole host of different tactics to distract you. And we tend to all then chase the red herring. We chase the bone. People don't want to respond to a particular topic. And so then they try to throw out, that's what a red herring means. It's a smelly fish, which they're hoping to get you to chase. And we are all then tempted to lose the topic and then follow them down a different rabbit hole. And it's really important in conversations to not necessarily allow that to happen. It's a certain amount of discipline that my girlfriend's often telling me about. Once you chase that bone and start a new conversation, you've gotten off track and you've never actually addressed what was originally being discussed. And it's basically should be understood as a dishonest tactic. So everything else is something else. We can talk about a different topic after we work through this one. So if I make a
right?
positive claim, you should respond to that positive claim. And if you change the topic or you throw me a bone and then I chase it, then I'm ultimately responsible for having fallen for that. So trying to keep people focused around the first topic. Let's try to find in good faith agreement on that first topic, and then we can move on to any other conversation. But people do that a lot, and it's not very polite. It's a bit rude, but we also need to recognize we have to be careful to not chase the bone. So when they change the topic, don't let them. Simply ignore
Yeah,
it and say, sorry, you didn't give me an answer to this particular question. Otherwise, conversations just go off the rails and go in a million different directions. So, like lately, there have been a couple situations where, some people have reached out to me for help, or I provided some people with help, and they sort of didn't have the courtesy to even respond back to me, or simply type out the word TY or thank you, or say, even provide a sort of courtesy response. I mean, those things are, I thought, rude in the world I grew up in. Usually, when someone asks you for something, or you provide something to someone voluntarily, which is in their best interest, normally the proper response is to come back with at least courtesy recognition. So it's
yeah,
in that same vein, and that's my personal um, grievance this week, which I'm not going to call out anyone for, but in the context of your particular situation, it's reminiscent. And I think an apology was due, and it was not forthcoming, and that's not very nice. So I think
right.
then, unless we want to take some more questions, or we want to, or if you have some other things to say, we might start to wrap it up. Again, the purpose of the
No,
video was to hopefully provide sort of a framework for how to think rationally and go about being skeptical and applying certain methods of critical thinking, and also digital technology at your disposal to help you evaluate truth claims more rationally, to be careful of your motivated reasoning, be careful of your tribal commitments, be careful of your personal commitments, and to be able to try as best as possible to be more objective, because all that we want is for a more rational community, a more thoughtful and careful community, and for people to be better critical thinkers, because that's in all of our best interests.
And of course, a more compassionate community. We still need to have compassion.
Absolutely. I mean, I take that as a given, but yes.
Right. So I want to thank everybody who came in to join us tonight. Sorry that I wasn't as chatty in the chat as I normally am. While Brain was talking, I was still preparing my notes and getting on top of things and making my brain work. So, but I really appreciate you all coming by and listening to us. And hopefully, some of these tools come in handy for you. You've got the links now, you know where to go. You can come back and rewatch this video to look up the links again, whatever. So, thanks for coming along, guys. Much appreciated.
Absolutely. And I need to answer Bo's question because it's come up recently. The reason I use the word derp is because over the years, moderating a community of 130,000 people on my Facebook forum, um, with the odd trolls and all of the obfuscation and irrationality, it happens, as you might have noted, being on the internet, that people can be quite rude or anger you. And from time to time, we lose a bit of our composure, and we might be tempted to want to say something like, well, uh, the
Fuck you.
take a long walk over a short pier, or yeah, you said it. So maybe sometimes you want to say "fuck you," and unfortunately, because I've been goaded into that place a few times, I've gotten 30-day bans on my Facebook forum, where I can't then run my science forum and do my little exercise of trying to educate people. And then I've had, just the Facebook censors come after me for things that I think are stupid. Or I've had actual complete and utter parody and satire, even quoting someone verbatim, get, result in a 30-day banning. And I've even been on an unpublishing list for a couple of years on Facebook for the crime of teaching science and philosophy and moral philosophy. Seems a bit unfair considering I'm not a peddler of misinformation. So it's in that context then that I now use the word derp. And my word derp, I feel, is my safe word to keep me from saying things that might just be a tad bit more inflammatory and possibly get me into trouble. So I like the word derp. It's a safe word to keep yourself from losing your composure. And it's funny when people get really triggered when you say derp. It's like, dude, I could have said fuck you and the horse you rode in on. I chose derp. It seems like that's not as bad, right? But in any case, so yes, to
Yes.
mirror what Ozzy said, thank you for all the thank you to Ozzy first of all. I mean, and thank you to Insightful, and thank you to Dumbala and all the other good skeptics who thought a little bit more than the average bear yesterday. And I hope you found this useful. Thank you to the mods. Thank you to anyone for showing up. I also apologize for not being as active in the chat room tonight. We wanted to get this delicate story out, and we wanted to get it out in a way which was productive and careful, so that maybe it can become a learning experience instead of just using it as inflammatory and sensational content to humiliate and embarrass and shame people. That's not what we wanted to do this evening. I hope we did a decent job of it. I hope we represented the arguments and the facts in this case well. And we leave you ultimately with the mystery. It's for you to figure out what you think happened. We're not going to tell you what our ultimate conclusions are. We're not sharing a lot of information. We're not sharing names. So I hope you respect and appreciate the reasons for behind why we chose that approach this evening. And maybe it's not sexy, and maybe you wanted a bit more dirt because dirt is very popular in this world, and sensationalism is very popular in this world, but that doesn't make us feel right. So we're not going to engage in it, and we're willing to deal with the consequences of maybe being boring or not scratching the itch that some people might have. So on that note,
I have
Aussie, thank you again. Thank you,
have
Insightful. Thank you to the mods, everybody else that came
I
tonight.
have
Thank you to anybody that's
on.
watching on
I
Aussie's channel. And now, please cut me off and tell me something.
I just want to cut you off, and I want to say to my Aussie friends, ACDC, oi, oi, oi. Sorry, had to do it. There's just too many Aussies in the room to not do it.
Yeah, and I'm a huge ACDC fan. I play guitar, and it was always the joke in the musician space that, you know, oh, for Christ's sake, the lead guitarist, Angus Young, or no,
Angus.
is it Angus, or what was his brother? His brother
Yeah,
died
Angus.
recently. Angus is the front guy, the front man, right? We always used to make the joke that,
Yeah.
he was never very technical, but he just had this technique that's just so, I don't know, it works so well, and I just cannot play Angus Young leads. It's just not in my blood. I play in a different way with a different style. And so, people can say what they want about ACDC, that it's formulaic and it's repetitive, but I will always love them. And both Bon Scott and the Alex, I forget what the more modern singer is. But in any case, I love ACDC too. So Viva Australia? No, it's Viva Las Vegas. I don't know what you say. What is it? Oi oi? Is that what you say?
Oi, oi,
Oi.
oi. That's how they sing it.
And on that
Or
silly
if
note,
you're at a footy match, oi, 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 Aussie, 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 oi, oi, oi. Depending on where
and
you are.
Malcolm, that's his brother. Thank you, insightful Magnum, Malcolm, who just died and was a brilliant rhythm guitarist. So again, thank you all for coming. I wish you a lovely evening. I hope you got something positive out of this. I'm sorry. I lament what happened yesterday. It bothered me. It bothered us enough, all of us, to try to figure it out. Hopefully, we helped. People asked for our help, and this is our contribution. Hopefully, we have in some way helped in the best way we could. And I bid you all adieu from the brain in the Vatican. I should pull up my brain in the Vatican picture again, but I'm too lazy, and we decided to do this straight without risking any technical difficulties. So again, thank you, everybody, and anybody that's watching on Aussie's channel. And Aussie, please go get some sleep. You put in a good, hard day, volunteer work. You were not paid for any of this, nor was I. We did this simply because we wanted to help and see if we could solve it. And I think we may have just done that. So I bid you all adieu, and jusqu'à la prochaine fois, my friends and compadres.
Adios,
I'm not
amigos.
sure. Adios, amigos. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night.